Nobody wakes up excited to spend $217 on subscriptions this month. Luckily, nobody asks you to. Instead, one service asks for $9.99, another wants $12.99. Cloud storage takes $5, an app takes $8, a membership takes $15, and something called Premium Plus Pro quietly takes money for a reason Zio no longer remembers. Individually, harmless. Together, Zio has accidentally hired a small monthly expense department. So why do subscriptions barely feel like spending, even when they're draining hundreds of dollars a month? And more importantly, why are they so easy to start and strangely difficult to notice? Normally, spending has a moment. You choose something, you see the price, you pay, your account becomes smaller. Very rude, but at least everyone understands what happened. Subscriptions change that sequence. Imagine Zio signs up for a streaming service, $12.99 a month. He thinks about the price once, he clicks subscribe once, he feels the purchase once, but the company gets to charge him again and again and again, without asking Zio to remake the decision every month. That difference is enormous, because the most powerful feature of a subscription isn't the monthly price. It's that eventually, there may be no monthly decision at all. And that's where the psychology gets interesting. Behavioral economics has a useful idea called the default effect. Humans are surprisingly likely to stay with whatever option continues automatically. Not because we're lazy in some moral sense, because changing something requires attention, time, energy, and a reason strong enough to interrupt whatever else we're doing. Your subscription understands this perfectly. Once you're enrolled, the default becomes keep paying. To stop paying, you must act. Notice the charge, remember the service, decide it isn't worth it, find the settings, find the subscription page, find the cancel button. Reject the generous offer to keep 17% of your subscription for 3 months. Explain emotionally to a website that yes, you are absolutely sure. Apparently ending a $7 subscription requires the emotional closure of a long-term relationship. But automatic renewal alone doesn't explain why the charges feel so small. For that, we need to look at the number. Suppose a service costs around $120 per year. Show Zio the annual bill, and he may stop. $120 feels like a decision. But show him $9.99 per month, and suddenly the same commitment feels much smaller. This is a form of price framing and what we can think of as small payment blindness. Your brain doesn't always evaluate the lifetime or annual cost. It reacts to the number placed directly in front of it. $9.99 feels manageable. $5.99 feels almost invisible. $2.99 barely feels like money. Because banks continue recognizing all three as money, the subscription economy benefits from turning a large commitment into a sequence of tiny, psychologically softer payments. And there is another trick hidden inside that number. Because small payments don't only look cheaper, they attract less attention. Imagine Zio spends $800 on a laptop. He remembers that purchase. He probably remembers the day, maybe the store, possibly the emotional negotiation with himself before clicking buy. Now ask him about the $7 charge that appeared on his card 3 Tuesdays ago. Different story. Small recurring payments can become background noise. That's a problem of payment salience. Some spending feels vivid. Other spending barely registers. Subscriptions are exceptionally good at becoming financially invisible because they combine 3 things: small amounts, automatic payment, and repetition. Once the brain decides something is ordinary, it stops giving it the same attention. A subscription can therefore move from "should I buy this?" to "oh yes, apparently I own that," without much conscious discussion. And free trials make this even more interesting, because sometimes the subscription begins before you've psychologically agreed to pay anything at all. Free trials sound simple. Try this for free. Cancel anytime. Wonderful. Zio signs up. He gives the service his card details. The first month costs nothing, which means the emotional experience of joining is separated from the financial experience of paying. That's powerful, because when the first real payment finally arrives, Zio isn't making a buying decision. He's failing to make a cancellation decision. Those are not psychologically identical. The company doesn't need him to say, "Yes, I want another month." It only needs him not to say, "Stop." That turns a free trial into a subscription trap when people forget, postpone, or underestimate the future charge. And notice how beautifully the default effect returns. The free period ends, the paid period begins, Zio does absolutely nothing. And doing absolutely nothing is enough to complete the transaction. A business model powered partly by Tuesday being busy. But forgotten trials aren't the biggest problem. The bigger problem appears when every subscription seems reasonable on its own. Look at these separately. Streaming, $12.99. Music, $10.99. Cloud storage, $4.99. Fitness app, $8.99. Software, $14.99. News, $6.99. One by one, none looks catastrophic. And that's exactly the problem. We tend to judge each purchase individually. The streaming service only has to justify $12. The app only has to justify $9. The cloud service only has to justify $5. Nobody stands at the door asking, "Would you like to spend $217 across 18 digital services this month?" Because that sounds much less adorable. Your bank account doesn't care that the decisions happen separately. It adds them together. So the subscription trap is often not one bad subscription. It's a portfolio of individually defensible decisions, creating one surprisingly expensive result. And that's where money psychology collides with basic arithmetic. At this point, Zio may say, "I use them." Fine, but usage isn't binary. Using something once isn't the same as receiving full value from it. Imagine a $15 membership. Zio used it twice this month. That's effectively $7.50 per use. Another service cost $10. He hasn't opened it for 3 months. That's not really a subscription anymore. It's a monthly donation to a login screen. This is where consumer psychology gives us another trap. Once something is already in our routine, we often stop asking whether we choose it again today. So here's a powerful test. If this subscription disappeared tonight, would you actively pay to restore it tomorrow? Not, "Could I possibly use it?" Not, "Was it useful 7 months ago?" Would you buy it again today? That question becomes even more important because subscriptions aren't merely selling access. They're also selling the avoidance of loss. Suppose Zio considers canceling a streaming service. Suddenly, he doesn't picture saving $12. He pictures losing the shows. Cancel the fitness app, lose the workouts. Cancel cloud storage, lose convenience. Cancel premium software, lose features. The decision gets framed as giving something up. And humans tend to dislike losses more than equivalent gains feel satisfying. That's related to loss aversion. So cancellation can feel psychologically worse than continuing, even when continuing isn't particularly valuable. And companies can reinforce that feeling. You'll lose your benefits. Your downloads will disappear. Your streak will end. Your special price cannot be restored. Notice the framing. Not "you'll keep your money," but "you'll lose something." Your $12 has apparently hired terrible public relations. Now multiply all of this. Streaming, music, software, games, storage, news, fitness, delivery memberships, AI tools, productivity apps, security services, creator memberships, phone apps. Suddenly Zio isn't managing subscriptions. He's running procurement. This is subscription fatigue. As the subscription economy expands, people face more recurring charges, more renewal dates, more pricing tiers, and more services competing for the same monthly budget. But here's the strange part. The more subscriptions you have, the harder it becomes to evaluate each one. Attention is limited. So financial clutter protects weak subscriptions. A service doesn't necessarily need to be excellent. Sometimes it merely needs to remain unnoticed, which means the solution isn't necessarily be more disciplined. There is a much easier way. Make invisible spending visible again. Once every few months, Zio does one thing. He opens his bank or card statement and finds every recurring payment, not the subscriptions he remembers, all of them. Then he asks 4 questions. 1. What does this cost per year? Turn $9.99 back into roughly $120. Turn $24.99 back into roughly $300. Monthly pricing becomes far more interesting when multiplied by 12. 2. When did I last use it? Yesterday? Fine. 6 months ago? We may have found a volunteer. 3. Would I subscribe again today? If the answer is no, continuing automatically deserves scrutiny. 4. What happens if I cancel? Sometimes almost nothing. And if you later miss it, you can often resubscribe. This reverses the default. Instead of keeping everything unless you remember to cancel, you move toward canceling weak subscriptions unless they prove useful. That's a surprisingly effective piece of financial literacy. Should you cancel everything? No. Subscriptions aren't inherently bad. Some are excellent. A subscription you use constantly may offer enormous value. Software can improve productivity. Streaming can replace more expensive entertainment. Cloud storage can be genuinely useful. Memberships can save money. The point isn't that subscriptions are evil. The point is that the payment structure changes your behavior. Recurring payments reduce repeated decision-making. Small prices lower psychological resistance. Defaults encourage continuation. Inattention protects weak services. That's why behavioral economics matters. The same product can feel financially different depending on how the payment is presented. And understanding that doesn't require becoming suspicious of every $9 charge. It requires recognizing the architecture around it. Remove the logos. Remove the free trials. Remove the monthly labels. Remove the word premium. Remove cancel anytime. Now show him one number. $217 every month. Then ask, would you deliberately build this exact package again today? If yes, great. Those subscriptions are doing their job. If not, the problem wasn't necessarily that Zio made one terrible decision. It was that dozens of small decisions became permanent without being reconsidered. That's the psychology of recurring spending. Nobody asked Zio to spend $217. They asked for 9, then 12, then 5, then 15. His brain judged each tiny payment. His bank account judged the collection. And that is why subscriptions often don't feel like spending. Inattention makes them quiet. Defaults keep them alive. Small payments make them feel harmless. The solution isn't to fear subscriptions. It's to occasionally force them back into one visible decision. But this creates an even stranger question. Suppose Zio fixes all of this, then gets a raise, more income, more breathing room. Surely the problem disappears, right? Not exactly. Because for millions of people, earning more money doesn't create more money left over. Their spending simply grows to meet it. So next, why every pay raise somehow disappears? Because the next money trap isn't hiding inside an app. It's hiding inside your definition of normal.